So the One Piece official YouTube channel just dropped the opening theme for the upcoming Egghead arc. The song is titled Ah and is sung by the incredible Hiroshi Kitadani. Now within this opening there is tons of little details and moments that you may have missed, so I'm going to go through and explain everything you can look forward to in this upcoming arc. Now as with every opening theme there may be spoilers ahead, so if you wish to avoid them please click off right now. Now lastly, the music will be switched out for something else to avoid copyright, so if you want to hear the actual song, click the first link in the description. Now without wasting any more of your time, let's dive right into this wacky opening. Now first we take place with where we ended in the last episode, with Luffy explaining his dream to his crew. Then we move on to this wide image of all the Straw Hats in their new outfits, and from the left to the right we have Frankie in a purple jumpsuit, then we have Robin, which might be one of the best outfits here, in a black bikini. Next of course is Usopp in a green jumpsuit, looking average as fuck. Then Chopper in the blue, but what I want to point out is Zoro is wearing what may be his best outfit since Wano. A black jumpsuit with a grey jacket, which just works perfectly with his green hair. Then we have Luffy in the red and Nami in the white, nothing really special there, but just beside her we have the Drip King himself, Sanji, in what may be his worst outfit I've ever seen him wear. A fucking Hawaiian shirt with black shorts and blue socks, like what is this guy on? Now next of course we have Brook in the yellow looking standard, and then Jinbei, who we know has no style whatsoever, so he gets a pass with the Hawaiian shirt, but Sanji is a fail from me. Moving on, we have this giant robot like iron giant creature. This is basically one of Vegapunk's giant robots which he uses to help the Straw Hats get to safety after the Navy has attacked. Nothing much to be said about it, just something to look forward to. But what we also have here, and what you may have missed, is in the water you can see these sea creatures, almost like sea kings. But what these actually are is Vegapunk's defense system, which he uses to protect the island. Moving on, we can see Luffy, Jinbei and Chopper stuffing their face, but if you look closely down here in the bottom right, we can see a blacked out figure who may be an important character for the future arc. Then we are presented with a couple of these key frames that don't really show a hell of a lot, except for this one, which shows a mysterious figure standing in the background on top of what appears to be a giant suit of armor. Moving on, we have 5 figures, and little is actually explained with them other than the fact that one of them has a number 1 written on his face. Now obviously little is actually explained here, but let me just say that these are 5 very important characters for this upcoming arc. In the next frame, we're presented with this wacky looking character with his tongue out. Now let me just tell you that this is a character that we've been waiting 20 years to see. But what's even more crazy about this image itself is in the background we can see a bird, a man with a big nose, and a woman. Now as you can all pretty much tell, this is obviously Kaku and Lucci's bird, and then over here on the right, this is Miss Buckingham Stussy, one of the new members of the CP0. Moving on, we are quickly faced with these 4 masks. Now obviously the one on the left is obviously Kaku's mask, and the one on the right is most likely Miss Buckingham Stussy, given that it is covered over her face. And then we are presented with 2 more in the middle, with the top left most likely being Lucci's bird, which means the one in the middle is most likely Lucci himself. But what comes next is one of the more important scenes in the whole video. It's this moment where we see Luffy and Zoro in front of his screen with a pile of images that come on. One being of the 7 figures I mentioned earlier that are very important to this upcoming arc. Next of course is this image of the world government, more specifically Garp, Kizaru and Hell Nepo, and then 2 mysterious figures hidden in the middle, basically highlighting that they will have an important moment or moments in this upcoming arc. Then next we have 3 figures of Cross Guild. Now these are potentially 3 of my favorite characters in the whole series, and it segues me to a video I have coming up on the channel where I'll be explaining 3 of the main possibilities for crew members that they will receive in the upcoming arcs. So if you'd like to see that, please subscribe and like this video and I'll get it out as soon as I can. But moving on, we see Luffy in Gear 5, and this is the moment that everybody is probably waiting for, because with the new wacky art style it makes it very interesting on what they will actually do with Gear 5 moving forward. Now in the next important frame we see Luffy in giant form, highlighting that we will once again see this giant form of Luffy in Gear 5. Then we are presented with this interesting moment with Kobe on Hachinosu. Now the last we've seen of Kobe, he was kidnapped by Blackbeard, and this is potentially a moment where we see him trying to escape. We also see the island itself coming alive in the background. Now this is most likely due to a devil fruit power, but which could it possibly be? Tell me in the comments below. Now next we see Jinbei, Chopper and Old Man Luffy, highlighting that Luffy will reach his limit in Gear 5 once again. Then in the background we see this giant mysterious figure with a big purple hand. But what I want to point out that's even more important are these jewels that are hidden around Luffy and the others. They will play a very important role in this upcoming arc, so keep an eye on them. Moving on, we see Law's crew. Not very important, but they're there. Next we see some more government members, more specifically Hell Nepo and the other members of SWORD. Very important characters for this upcoming arc, and more so Hachinosu. Then we have a very important keyframe where we see Sentomaru and the Pacifistas, meaning we could be faced with another Sabaody incident. But what's even more interesting is in the very next keyframe we see Kizaru flying in the sky in his light form, meaning we could potentially get a Kizaru fight in this upcoming arc. Now I don't need to tell you that I've been waiting for this since Sabaody. But then we see what doesn't appear to be a pacifista but the actual Kuma himself being pulled by a pile of wires. meaning he may have an important role to play in this upcoming arc. Then coming out of the water, we see a pink-haired beauty which can only be Jewelry Bonnie, one of the worst generation. Moving on, we have this weird detective-like image of number 1, the character we've seen earlier in this video, meaning there is most likely a mystery coming to this island. Now another cool frame is this one where we see 3 of the Warlord Seraphim all standing together, meaning there is a potential possibility where we will see Zoro fighting young Mihawk. Now another interesting frame which I'm just going to let play is this one where we see all the different outfits of the Straw Hats throughout the story. Then we reach the coolest few frames in the whole intro, beginning with Gear 5 Luffy versus Awakened Lucci. Then moving on to Kid versus Shanks and Law versus Blackbeard and Garp versus Aokiji. And if that wasn't enough, we also see Zoro facing against a young Seraphim Mihawk. This is basically highlighting that this coming arc is going to consist of a fight after a fight after a fight of all the main top strongest characters in the series. Then moving on, we see Sabo and the Crows, which quickly switches to Morgans and 2 mysterious figures hidden in the background. Now one is obviously Wapol, given his size, but the other, it's a blue-haired, pink-dressed wearing girl. Now if you remember back to the Reverie, we seen this very same character standing alongside Rebecca. It was Phoebe Nefertari. Now the last we seen of Phoebe, she was at the Reverie with the other princesses and royal families alongside her dad. So how does she end up alongside Wapol and Morgans? 2 very weird characters to ever see together. But then moving on, we have this mysterious dark feeling image of 2 characters holding flowers, highlighting that potentially someone will die in this upcoming arc. Then we are presented with this image of the sword surrounding the empty throne, which isn't empty right now but is housing a blacked out image who could only be Emu. Now next we see a weakened Sabo, and then the last we see of him, he was initiating war on the Reverie, which potentially means his escape didn't go according to plan. This image soon switches over to Kid, who we also see in a weakened state, meaning his fight versus Shanks also didn't go according to plan. But that's not all, as we also see Law in a weakened state, meaning his fight versus Blackbeard doesn't go according to plan. And lastly, we see this image of Kobe, who is also weakened, meaning his escape from Hachinosu may not have gone to plan. And next we see this cool frame of Phoebe switching into Bonnie, but what I want to highlight is in the background we can see 2 images. One is a circular hole and the other is a pawpaw fruit outline, basically highlighting that the pawpaw fruit, or more specifically Kuma, may play an important role to Bonnie's evolution. Which is pretty much the end of this intro clip. Now a couple of things I want to just revisit real quick is there's going to be a fight after fight after fight with the top 10 strongest. Then there's going to be a potential death, which was highlighted by these 2 figures holding flowers. And then next we are going to be introduced to Bonnie in a much bigger way than we ever were before. And her story also seems to tie into Kuma's story, which is even more interesting because that's a backstory that we've waited years to see. But now with all that out of the way, let me ask you one last question. Which of these many fights are you most excited to see animated? Because as for me, I'm longing to see that defined departure moment with Shanks versus Kid. But with that, that's going to do it for me in this video. If you enjoyed, then please like and subscribe down below. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and peace.